What's up, everybody? Look what CVLIFE sent this to me, a spotting scope. And I know what you're thinking on a photography channel. What is this doing in actually a shooting channel? I have another channel. It's a shooting targets channel that, this kind of falls into that. But with photography, there's a thing called Digiscoping. It's a little bit old. It's an old technique where you kind of take this, a spotting scope, and you mount a camera. I'm working with the iPhone 16. So my goal is to take this guy and hook it up and try to get some photographs or some video with it. And that's kind of digiscoping. And it's one of those things. Some of the advantages to digiscoping is the fact that you can use a very high power magnification, similar to like a 800 mil zoom on something that's very light, a 1200 mil zoom on something that's very lightweight and affordable. So back in the day when 600 mil, 1200, 800 mil was 10, 12, 15,000 and weighed 15, 20 pounds, guys were using this as a way to kind of get around that, and with some fairly good results. There's some famous digiscopers out there that have some beautiful photos of birds, and you can zoom in. So this guy, I'll get you in the box here, is a 20 to 60. It's got a big zoom range. I'll figure out kind of where it falls into as far as a millimeter zoom and that, and kind of there. And why I want to do digiscoping versus just looking at a target. I kind of want to use this as a double post, one on the photography channel, one on the shooting targets. But I think you get a better indication of the quality of the lens and what you can do with this doing digiscoping with a camera mounted on the lens or on the spotting scope versus just kind of zooming in at a target far away, and you get a lot of haze, you get a lot of mist, you don't get a lot of clarity in I guess downrange. When you're a quarter mile or 200-300 yards downrange, you see heat waves, you see all that kind of stuff that doesn't do any well. So let's bust open the box and see what they sent, and then start to get this. What I want to try to do is put this in a bird blind, feed some birds, and try to zoom in and get some decent photos and see what we can get for feather detail and video, and see how all this works. So stand by, let's dig in the box. All right, let's just open this bad boy up, see what they put inside. 20 to 60 power scope, spotting scope. Let's see what we got here. Try not to rip everything apart too much. What are we at? We have to open this. Yep, that looks like the deal. Okay. All right, we have like a little tripod. Cool. We have, the scope, or I should say the mount for the iPhone. We're gonna mount this to the lens. Let's take a look at this. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. This is cool. Got a little tripod mount and sunshade. Cool. And there's our 20 to 40 and 60. Before we jump outside, I want to go left to right, and be my left to right, on some of the things with this scope, and we're going to talk about before I get out there. One is kind of the eye relief, the in and out there, that situation. You have the 20 to 60 power adjustment. Most people, if you're looking at the best image quality, the clearest image through this, they go with 20. Maybe up to 40. If you're really desperate, you go up to 60. But even in the most, expensive spotting scopes, most people stick to 20 to 40. The ones that are like $3,500, they still keep to the 20 to 25 if they're trying to capture images and get the best image out of it. So we get the next device. The next little switch here is the focusing dial. That's what gets you your sharpest image. It takes a little bit kind of move back and forth because you have such a high magnification. Speaking of magnification, on 20 power, probably like 1200 to 2000 millimeters. At 60 power, we're probably at 3000 to 5000 millimeter zoom. Like, that's a ton. To put it in perspective,
This here is 600 millimeters. This is a $3,000 lens, like 2,500. And so you see the big difference. You know, this is 6 pounds, this is 2 pounds. This will get you out there, even on micro four thirds, it gets you 1,200 millimeters, which is, it's a lot of zoom, but this will, on its base value at 20 power, will get you out further than this will. So with that being said, we have the tripod mount, little tripod mount screw there, adjustable. You can kind of move it back and forth to your liking. And then most importantly, if you're looking at improving your image quality, your sunshade. This is the thing, a lot of people, the image looks washed out. It looks purple fringing. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens when light goes into the lens without the lens shade. Doesn't matter whether it's any type of photography, any type of lens. If you're dealing with harsh lighting conditions, pop the sunshade out, and it makes a world of difference on your image quality. So what we'll do, we'll get out in the field, we'll mount the iPhone on this, and then we'll see what kind of image we can get at 20 power in that, and kind of go over some of the pros and cons. One thing for certain before we even get started, the minimum focus distance is pretty long with this, meaning we have to be, let's say 20, 40 feet away for us to focus and get something sharp, because it just can't focus down that close. And that makes sense because you have a 60 power scope. If you were that close anyway, why would you need something like this? This is something for something super far away, but we'll see if we can use it. In retrospect or comparison, this can focus down to like 2 feet. This, you're gonna need 20 feet or so. But yeah, let's get out in the yard and see what we can do.
So I'll walk you through my experiences, because I'm definitely, this is the first time I've digiscoped. I've read about it, I've seen people do it, I was always interested in doing it. And the correlation between digiscoping for wildlife and photography and doing for target practice, that kind of thing is there. Because if it works for animals, it's going to work for a target. Like if you can see fine detail on an animal, shooting a target, getting that recorded is not going to be an issue. I think it's more that the bar is higher if you're doing like wildlife videography with it versus just shooting targets. It's a lot tougher to get everything. So when we get into this I got a setup of a post about 20, 25 yards, and behind it, I'll show you some trees that were another 10 to 20 yards away. So roughly we have anything from about 20 to 45 yards. Anything out of that 20-yard range, as far as a traditional lens, like my 600 or 1200 mil, I was so far back in this, I would never really photograph birds this far away with traditional equipment. It was almost double the distance. And what I noticed is when I put the spotting scope on, I was like, holy mackerel, you could get right up on it. I almost had to move further back. And that's the thing. But what I did notice is most of the birds and the animals that came in were even around. It was relaxing. When I'm there with the traditional lens, the animals get a little jittery because you're kind of right on top of them. No matter what, no matter if you have a 600 mil, 1200 mil, they're still jittery. But with this being about 2,000, 3,000 millimeters by the time you zoom in and everything, I just felt like they didn't even really as much care about me. They're a little bit, persnickety with coming in. And that's where the first bird, the cardinal on the tree, that was probably 40 yards away. Would have never tried to get that photo with a traditional lens, with a traditional camera system. And so, again, if it does halfway decent with wildlife, and you can see the feather detail, and you can see that, you can see their eyes and everything, it will do well in target practice. Like it's a simpler mechanism. You at least know that, hey, this is kind of a standard what you could get from the lens, especially when you're looking at something for instance, versus just a white paper target with some X's on it. So that being said, the cardinal was about 40, 45 yards out. Then it came in to roughly about 20, 25 yards out. Now still, I am much further away than I normally would be with my traditional gear. But one thing I did notice being new to digiscoping is the fact that man, that focus, it's a manual focus. That little dial on the top is so tough because you have so much compression. You'll see some birds come in before the cardinal and after, and they're out of focus. And then if you look at the background blur, it's pretty much out of focus as well. So it's imperative that you have your little dial set and your focus system set up and everything right on spot. Because if you miss it at all, it's very hard to kind of clean up with sharpening in that. But then again, you know, there's the mounting system where you have vibrations. This is the second one you're going to have to look at, guys, when you're doing this kind of photography, digiscoping, whether it's just on a target or anything else. You're going to need a stable tripod. Any kind of wind, any kind of thing like that is going to blow and make that jitter in. And so I'll leave some of the jitters in. I've cleaned some of them up, but the slightest touch on your camera or your lens is just super vibration. And then finally, we get a squirrel to come in. That's a little bit more something that's more common. I was able to kind of get a little bit better focus on the squirrel, and you can tell that that image quality looks fairly decent. Look at the background blur, it looks nice. And again, I didn't nail the focus on the squirrel. This could do better, but it was, I guess, acceptable enough to kind of see this. So the color scheme and what I used on the iPhone, I used ProRes on half of it, and I noticed using ProRes actually was worse. Being able to adjust and do the color correction with ProRes on the iPhone through this scope just was a bloody mess. It was going up and down and just wouldn't hold well. And that's using the regular iPhone color scheme, just let it rip 4K. And yeah, it did a much better, and then I could adjust it from there up and down. So there is some drawbacks to the whole camera mount onto the scope. The target scope is because, the spotting scope I should say, because there's a little area in there that it's a little light bleed, which kind of gets into your lens and it washes things out. It does some weird thing, you know, maybe get some color fringing, that kind of stuff. So getting the right thing, and also you have to match it up. You got to match your right lens up with the scope and everything else, and that becomes the whole mounting of it is really kind of half the issue, half the battle. Once you get it mounted up and get it locked in, I think you can get some good stuff out of it. So for me, it was a learning experience. You could see with the photos or with the video what you think in comparison. Does it compare against, let's say, a P950 or P1000 within the regular zoom range? No. A small compact further out, this is going to be better. If you want to stay away from animals or you want long distance target, this is obviously going to be better, because those small compacts are like 800, 900 millimeter. This is like almost 5,000 millimeters. It's way out there. And in fact, there's some areas where I zoomed in with 60 power on the Cardinal at like 40 yards, and it was fairly decent. It did fairly well in comparison to you know, get you right up in the action. Nothing that I do videography or wildlife seriously, but it's something, you know, going through this with you guys. If you're looking at where's most of my content end up, it's on the iPhone. So if you want simplicity, and this is the thing that I've been looking for forever, is just simplicity for my iPhone, you know, gear in photography, because I really just, I kind of hate taking a lot of gear with me, and the iPhone does some great photography, but it's the long distance lenses where it, you know, kind of misses out. But for the most part, Instagram, YouTube, your friends, everything shows up on the iPhone or an Android device, smartphone device. And so if you can get something, I think this lens is, spotting scope is like $100 to $200. I'll put an affiliate link down below, and if you want to grab it. But it's good enough for kind of nature viewing and kind of capturing the moment. But for 150, 200 bucks, you can't expect, you know, to compete with a $2,000 lens and that kind of thing. I think it's obvious there. Even the expensive stuff that I've seen that are like 3,000, 3,500, it's still, you know, image quality is not there with the camera lenses, just because you're mounting on something to it. It just doesn't quite do as well. But it's close enough. It can work there. So there you have it, guys. You got comments, questions, write it down below, respond to you. This is, again, if you're going to target shoot with this, no problem. It's very, very, very good. Good enough for the job. If you're going to do serious wildlife, if you want to do wildlife viewing, it's pretty good and it's simplistic. So thanks a lot. See you later.